You're about to listen to a new episode of Audio Signals. Get ready to take a journey into the known, the unknown, and everything in between. Recorded at no specific point in time nor space, ITSP Magazine's co-founders Marco Ciappelli and Sean Martin follow their passion and curiosity as they venture away from the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society to discover new stories worth being told. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Blue Lava is the first business platform for CISOs to manage their security program. Blue Lava guides security leaders to effectively measure, optimize, and communicate their security program with confidence and ease in one platform. Learn more at bluelava.net.
Sean,
close your eyes and open your mind.
You know, I try to do that, but I get wrapped in all the things that happen around me. And I need to learn how to detach from all of that, especially during the pandemic. Always something bad to think about, and I need a way out.
It's interesting that when things get tough, at least for me anyway, it's hard to remember that there are ways to deal with it. I think and end up in a spiral, not able to deal with certain things, and forgetting that we have the control over what we feel and how we think. And yeah, it's funny, as humans we don't always have the capacity to recognize that, but that's why others are around to help us remember and to help us learn and practice some of those things.
That's true. And there are certain things that work for someone better than other. There's not a one thing that fixes it all. For someone, maybe go for a walk. For someone to learn how to meditate. For someone is exercise, plays an instrument. I mean, it's all a form of meditation anyway. But you know what it works really for me?
What's that?
Music.
I think we share the same thing there. Both listening and playing, both of us.
Yeah, although I'm much better at listening.
You are better.
I'm a better listener than a player, but you know, I try, and it does
do
work.
all right at playing. Just depends on what instrument.
Good.
I think you're better at the guitar than me, but that's not why we're here. We're not talking about our guitar or guitar hero skills.
but we are connecting things, and I think we just got to the point where we can introduce our guest, because this is Audio Signals, where we talk about not necessarily about cybersecurity, technology, and society, but about what is important and inspiring for us. And when we got the idea of inviting this person to the show, I didn't hesitate, because it is about music, is about mind traveling, is about healing, and is about, I don't know, bringing people to maybe a better place. But what do I know? Let's ask him. Sean,
you know
who's
nothing.
our guest? I know
Murray
nothing.
Hidary, thanks for joining us and not dropping off while Marco and I do our weird thing at the beginning.
It's our signature thing.
I love it. Hi guys. Hi Sean. Hi Marco. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you.
It's a pleasure. So now that people are bored with us, let's get them riled up and excited. Who is Murray? What are you up to? Maybe a little brief history of how you arrived to your point now and what you're working on now.
Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on where you brought us to, I mean, this whole notion of, signal and noise, right? Like, we live in a very noisy world, and especially those of us that live in big cities, and most of the world population now, I think it's up to 70+% of the world's population live in urban settings, big cities. That's shifted over the decades. But even in countries like China, most people have moved to big urban cities. You have cities with tens of millions of people. It's a noisy world. And I think people need to find a sense of stillness, sense of peace, while being and living amongst, all the commotion, all the chaos. So kind of a controlled chaos, if you will. And the question is, how can we find that signal, right, to your kind of name audio signals. How do we find that signal, through the noise? And it's not only about, oh, I'm going to jump on a plane and go to the far side of the world and sit on an island, and have a margarita. That's nice every once in a while, but we can't always do that. Nor would we want to always do that. Life happens in the living of it, amongst people, amongst projects, amongst doings. And it's not about removing ourselves from it to find peace. No, the question is, can we find peace even though the conditions around us aren't always peaceful? Can we find calm when the conditions around us aren't always calm? Can we find tranquility, right, when things around us may not be tranquil at that time? And that's the real question here, right? Inquiry is like, who controls our state, right? Our state, moment to moment, our emotional state, our mental state, our physical state, like who controls our state? Typically, people prefer the control of their state to what's happening around them, right? They're in traffic and it's not moving. Maybe they'll be late or they're just frustrated. And so their state in that moment is handed over voluntarily and freely, actually, to the traffic. And the traffic dictates their mood and their state. They've lost their power. They've relinquished their power in that moment. Go to visit family. And there's always someone in the family that knows how to trigger us, right? And, we're there and that person says something that just sets us off. Where's our state? Who controls it? We handed it over to that family member. And on and on and on. We can all think of other examples. So the real question is, can we move through life moment to moment and maintain a tranquility, a stillness of state, no matter what's happening around us, kind of like the eye of the storm, if you will? And turns out, I think that's possible. I know it's possible. And that's something that you can cultivate. We can all cultivate. And it turns out that music is an extremely powerful way to do that, in my experience. Not just playing music, but listening to music. And that's something that anybody can do. The only skill needed is the skill of paying attention. And it turns out that's a real skill. It's not, just a default, like, oh, I'm just listening, right? It's kind of this distinction between, hearing and listening. Like, are you really paying attention? And music is the ultimate modality for that because it only happens in the moment. It's ephemeral. You can't touch it. You can touch the instrument, but you can't touch the music. And so the only way to experience music is to pay attention, which keeps us deeply in the present moment. There's an urgency to music, right? You must be listening to it now because it only happens right now and right now.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference. It's like, from between being still and meditate. There is a difference between having the music in the background and having the music come into your mind. So I think that's what you mean. And I want to go much, much deeper in this. But before we go there, and before you tell us about your kind of like the places where you've played music, because I was reading your bio and it's very interesting. I have a ton of questions. I'm sure Sean the same. Tell us a little bit about you. Like, I'm assuming, of course, you're a musician. You probably start really early in life. So a little short version of how you got to what you're doing now, your experience that brought you here.
Yeah, music entered my life at a very young age. I was 5 years old, and Mom took me for my first lesson. The cello was my first instrument, and the piano was my second instrument at age 6. And from that early age, I played both instruments for my whole childhood. By the time I got to high school, I knew I wanted to be a composer, meaning I knew I had something to share of my own in terms of my own voice, expressing my own voice through music. Music was a very natural language for me. I was a pretty shy kid. I had a vast imagination and an internal world, and I found words kind of hard to put together in terms of my expression, both emotionally, but kind of in a lot of ways. But music was more natural. I just found a real comfort sitting at the piano and just kind of playing and figuring out my own patterns and tunes and melody harmonies. And I knew that being a composer was really a calling for me. It was, and that's what I ended up studying at university, to be a classical composer. And at around the same time, I also discovered Eastern philosophy, Eastern meditation, particularly the Zen Buddhist tradition. But over the years, I've studied many traditions, Vedic traditions from India and many other places. And those worlds of East and West came together. They fused together. I actually studied the repertoire of the Zen monks. They actually played these beautiful bamboo flutes that were used for musical meditation. In Zen, there's this sitting meditation that you might do at a monastery or at home called zazen. You sit on your cushion and you do the Zen meditation. But in Zen Buddhism, there's also this notion of sui-zen, S-U-I-Zen, sui-zen, which is moving meditation, meditation in movement. That could be a walking meditation. That could be meditating while you're doing laundry or doing the dishes. It could be doing anything in life, bringing meditation off the cushion and into life. And that's what this repertoire was that these Zen monks from this, way back from the 17th and 18th century would create this beautiful, haunting music, describing even every breath of where you breathe in the music. So a really deep meditation. Studying all that music on the flute, on the bamboo flute, the Japanese flute, it then influenced my piano playing. And piano became my main instrument because as a composer, when you're creating, you have the whole orchestra there, right, with the 88 keys of the keyboard. And then I, studied piano deeply, and that became my regular ritual, daily ritual of sitting at the piano with this influence of the East, with the influence of this Eastern music, with the influence of these Eastern ideas of what it means to have an altered state of consciousness, of what it means to, find that stillness, what emptiness means, all these different notions of mindfulness. And the music became the pathway through which to explore that, all those ideas. So in many ways, music became kind of my religion, so to speak, but it was truly my pathway to express my emotions, process my emotions, and also, explore consciousness and the universe and our role in how we got here and what that all means.
So Murray, I mean, there's this, I don't know, so many questions in my mind. So the first one is, you're a composer, you play for others. As a musician, when I performed for people before, but most of the time I do it for myself, and I happen to be performing, but it's to fulfill myself, to hear what's created. And I'm just wondering, for you, what's the relationship between music as a religion for yourself, composing music? Do you do that for yourself, or is it purposefully to help generate something that will impact others? Or to maybe describe that relationship for me.
Yeah. I mean, for so many years, Sean, I played music just for myself. I was not playing publicly. Now I would compose for others, but playing really was my own ritual, was my own personal practice. And it was years into it, after I kind of developed this whole language that I improvise in, to just sit at the piano. Could be for 10 minutes or it could be for an hour and 10 minutes, but it would just depend on the setting. I would just sit and I would play whatever was going on for me, consciously and subconsciously. Most of our experience is happening subconsciously. We don't even know what's truly going on beneath the surface. It's kind of like, think about it like an iceberg. You have 10% above the surface visible, but 90% of the iceberg is beneath the sea. Our minds are similar in that nature, right? We have access to a small fraction of the vastness of our consciousness, and music can coax more of it into visibility, into experience, into an unveiled state. So it can be, seen above the water, so to speak. And I was on my own, and I started to really feel the benefits of that. After university, I was about 20, and I wasn't sure how to make money with classical music, and it had a very important personal place in my life. So it wasn't like, okay, let me go write jingles for TV or commercials or things like that. That wasn't the path for me. Music had a very sacred space in my life. At the same time, I was having that conversation, kind of what direction in life I was going to go and kind of how was I going to pay the bills. A conversation with my older brother, who was a technologist. When I was going to music camp as a kid, he was going to coding camp and computer camp. So he and I started chatting, and it was the early days of the .com era of the internet in the 90s. And it was such a thrilling time, kind of like what's happening now with blockchain and crypto and, and all that. But this was, back in the 90s. And I didn't know much about it, but it was so thrilling and exciting about the possibilities of what it could be. And so we both, we're in our early 20s. We jumped in and started our own company. It was a company called Earthweb, which about 4 or 5 years later, we ended up taking public on NASDAQ and in an IPO. And it was a thrilling time, creating new technologies and software and really pushing the envelope. But music still had a huge role in my life, because I actually had in my office, I had a grand piano in my office of this tech company. And at the end of every crazy startup day with all the fires you got to put out and all the havoc, I would sit at that piano at 10 o'clock at night and I would just play. And it reset me. It refreshed me. It refocused me so that I can come back the next morning, ready to go for whatever that day had to offer. And I just did that every day. Eventually, life throws a lot of curveballs at you. And, I went through the most difficult time of my life, personally tragic and difficult time, with the sudden and tragic death of my little sister in an accident. She was only 23 and I was with her, and it was just a horrific time. And to get through that, I turned to music. That's what I knew. And I turned to music to just feel that pain out of me. And many of us go through that kind of intense grief. And, death and grief will touch us all. It's just a question of when. Those we care about, that's just what happens. And I turned to music to navigate that pain and that difficulty. And, I came through the other side of it, not just kind of surviving it, but in a way, my heart was so opened, kind of cracked open by the pain, and then nurtured by the music to really feel through it. And it was such a powerful transformation, such a powerful opening that took place, that I felt I felt compelled that I needed to share that with others. And that's when MindTravel was born. That's when what I do was born. And eventually, now, this is now over the course of a decade and a half, 2 decades, but I transitioned all the tech companies I was working on over the years. About 3-4 companies over the years that I built, and took one public, sold one, etc. And then decided that I needed to draw a line in the sand and really focus on my music and put it out there and be of service. There's a point, I think, in all of our lives where we've built things, we've expressed ourselves in different ways, and there's a point in which giving back, being of service, connecting with others, making a difference starts to really become important. And the level of fulfillment that you get from it, you can't match in any other way. And so that's, when I dedicated my life to that and did the first concert experience, and then it just organically, word of mouth, it just grew and went, from one to the next, from one venue to the next. And, now, I don't know, I think I've performed hundreds upon hundreds of concerts and created immersive experiences from beaches, from Santa Monica Beach to Central Park, and theaters all over the country. And it's just been a remarkable journey.
That's incredible. And I love how you're telling this story. I don't even know why Sean and I are here, because you're really captivating. It's almost like, using words. It's another way to heal people. And I mean, you're a very good storyteller. So I can only imagine the experience. And you just said Santa Monica and Central Park, so I'm sure both Sean and I could come and hear you. But let us know when you're on one side or the other of the United States. But I know that you've been in other places like Antarctica. I was reading in your bio.
That's right.
And you're using your music, and Saudi Arabia as well. You're using your music. I want to go to the foundation because that's where you were going. But before we get there, like, tell me about this experience and how you decide to actually go and use the power of music also to create awareness, maybe for other issues. Imagine climate change and other things. So tell me about that part, which is very important.
Yeah, I've realized that music has this incredible power to open the heart. It is the language of emotion. And we even say, right, when we don't have the words for something, we turn to music, right? And music is this incredible multidimensional language that allows us to express things that we have a hard time finding the words for. And that's why music can open the heart so deeply. It can connect the heart and the mind and the body. And using music to not just heal, like I described a little earlier, but also to create a sense of wonder. And I think that, when we're kids, we're deeply tethered to wonder and the imagination. But then something happens, right? At some point, I don't know, we become adults, whatever that means. And we lose that tethering to wonder, or we experience it much more infrequently, right? It's fewer and far between. So, my aspiration with the concerts and experiences I create is to connect people to that sense of wonder, to that experience of wonder. Nature can connect us to wonder. Other people in the audience, there's wonder there. Wonder resides within each person, so the music can connect us to our deepest selves. And so that's the opportunity, is to be in touch with that. And then yes, there's awareness to be had about issues both locally and globally that we can then point attention to. And by opening people's hearts, right, they could care more about it. And until people care about an issue, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to action, no matter how intellectually they might agree or whatever. So take an issue, like climate change. It's a very pressing and important issue that we all have to contend with, like all of us. And you look at a place like Antarctica, it seems like, well, that's, the far side of the world. Who cares what happens there? Well, it turns out that what happens in Antarctica affects us everywhere in the world. Most of our oxygen, the air we breathe, it turns out, comes from the oceans. And you have the largest populations of phytoplankton, little plant life in the Southern Sea. And that's what krill feeds on, which is what seals and whales and penguins feed on. And it turns out these little phytoplankton generate over half the oxygen that we breathe. So imagine if the climate gets threatened, the ocean levels, the temperatures rise, and the phytoplankton start to die off because they can't survive in the warmer temperatures. Then our actual oxygen supply starts to get threatened. This is just the cause and effect. This is just the domino effect of causes. And it's an opportunity to, reverse that, hopefully. But until we get it and until we feel it and care about it, we won't really change. So I went there and I brought my piano, and we mounted the first piano concert on the continent of Antarctica. There's this gorgeous piano on the ice with hundreds and hundreds of penguins in the background and a human audience of people that were on the ship, about 100 plus people. And we used music to connect with the landscape, use music to be in conversation, if you will, with that gorgeous, vast landscape. And I don't care who you are, if you were sitting there, you can't help but feel a deep primal connection to everything around you, where everything within you that you thought at some point might have been separate because you live in, some house in, in California, or an apartment in LA or in New York. No, you're not separate. You are deeply tethered to this land, even though it's at the South Pole. So it moves you, it shifts you, it changes you. And then you care. And if you care, there's a chance that you might take some kind of action, personally in your own life or in some bigger way. So that's the purpose of it, and we then, of course, filmed it, recorded it, and we'll be releasing that. And even from the comfort of your home, you watch it and you see the nature and you see the life there and you see the stillness that's there amongst all the incredible diversity in music and the music of the landscape. It's just, it can't help but move you, even from the comfort of your own home, which, that's the whole point, right? Only a handful of people are going to be able to go to Antarctica, but we can all, right, be moved by watching a video and listening to the music that we recorded there. So, that's the driving force behind the work I do.
And Murray, I mean, this is, you describe the driving wonder to get a sense of purpose, right? To get people to move and do something, and that's for, it isn't just for themselves, right? It's for others. So talk to us a little bit about the foundation and who it's designed to help. And I think it's important to note, maybe you can expand on it a little bit, that music kind of is a universal language, right? If we're looking at it in terms of a way to communicate, but it's also a universal feeling. I think when you're describing that sense of wonder and the connection to the land, we probably maybe have little nuanced differences of what strikes us, but that feeling is probably also common, right? And the desire to do something after having that feeling is probably also common. Can you kind of share? I know I asked a lot there. What that commonality, and then who it's, what the action is, and who that's for.
Yeah, no, that's right. And when we talk about nature, right, there are even people, Sean, who say, "Oh yeah, I like nature," or "No, I don't like the outdoors," or like there's people who actually say that. And again, that reinforces this illusion that we are separate from nature. And in no way is that the case. We are part of the natural process that is the universe. We are not separate as insulated as we make ourselves through our structures and institutions and societies and cultures. We are part of nature, part of the planet, part of the universe, right? My body, your body is made of 4 primary, atomic structures, molecular structures, right? It's hydrogen and oxygen and carbon and nitrogen. That's what makes you up. That's what makes me up and everyone else in the world. And turns out that's what the whole universe is made up of. So it's just shifting energy, intelligence, vibration, moving through and we're just a part of that. And so it is about exposing that connection. Music does that. Music is the language of vibration. And so what better way to feel the connection of all things than through the language of the universe, which is vibration, which is music. Now, the foundation is really about bringing this experience to those who, may be in an underprivileged situation. Not everybody can afford to, get a ticket to a theater, to a location that I do this in. So we have the foundation to bring the music, to bring the experience to them. I've brought this to countless seniors who are bedridden, who will probably live out the rest of their days, in this facility. And I want them to have this deep experience, this deep healing experience, connective experience. And so I bring the piano and I bring all of it to the senior home, to the nursing facility, and many other situations like that. Also with cultures, as you mentioned correctly, music is an international language, especially the music that I create. it's not a specific style. It doesn't have lyrics to it that might not translate. There's an abstraction to it. It's kind of like looking at an abstract piece of art, right? You can kind of place the details you want into it. So if you have a cultural context from another part of the world, for instance, I went to Saudi Arabia most recently to create this experience, a very different culture than what I grew up in, on every level. From a geographical point of view, it's different. From a cultural point of view, from a religious point of view, so many levels, it's different. And yet, in the desert of Saudi Arabia, I created an experience for locals there. And those people couldn't have looked more different than, where I come from, in terms of their dress, in terms of all of it, their language. And yet they were as still as can be during the experience, during the concert. They really went on the train. They went on the ride. And they opened their minds and hearts through the music to the moment. And then afterwards came up to me and wanted to share their gratitude and expression. And I'm sure it's the first time they've ever heard anything like that, experienced anything like that. And yet it was natural and easy because music, all you have to do is be in the listening, just pay attention. That's all they had to do. And of course I had, my co-conspirators of nature, right? And all of it around me. So it was beautiful to witness. And it's not just places like Saudi Arabia, but across, the US. I didn't want to just bring this to, New York, Miami, Los Angeles, San Francisco, right? The kind of hotbeds of mindfulness, if you will, or where these things are more prevalent. No, I've taken this cross country several times on tour, going to, places like Detroit, going to places like Nashville, Memphis, Biloxi, Mississippi. I've taken it to Mobile, Alabama, to Galveston, Texas, taking it to the heart of this country and finding that same connection, that same human arc, right? No matter where you're from, like we all have the same human experience, the arc of the human experience, just at different times in different ways with different details. And the music is the soundtrack for that. The music can tell that story.
So as we start wrapping here, although I think the next thing I'm going to do is to go listen to your music. Because I listen to a lot of music. I was saying at the beginning, and I like good headphones, and I spend more money than what I should in actually listening to music. But there are people that are, for many reasons, life brought them somewhere else. Maybe detached from music. Maybe they can't afford that. Maybe they don't even have the energy, the mental energy to think about it. I was reading about your foundation, and so the video that you have on YouTube where you go to senior and people that experience trauma, and you just go there and show them that there is this thing. And I like to hear your emotions when you do something like this, and where are you going with this? Like, what is ahead?
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's you feel a heartbreak, when you're with people that are just having kind of such struggle in life physically and also emotionally, people going through stuff. But at the same time, when you see a possible shift that takes place, an opening, it's so heartwarming. And that's really what I do this for. Whether someone is, has a very difficult physical, struggle, or someone's dealing with grief or trauma or whatever it is. And look, we all are experiencing, micro traumas in our own lives all the time. It doesn't have to be something, massive. Even all of us coming through the pandemic, which is something the whole world went through. We all have our own micro traumas around that. So I think there's a place for this in everyone's life. The notion of meditation has, of course, gotten very, very popular all around the world and, around the country here. And But, for some people, it's very challenging. Like you said, they just can't do it. They don't think they're doing it right. They can't focus. They can't sit still in silence. And I get that, it poses a challenge. What's incredible about music, and this music in particular, is that when you put your headphones on, the brain works, Marco, in an additive way. What I mean by that is you can't tell the brain to stop thinking about something. It doesn't work that way, right? If I tell you to, right, the proverbial stop thinking of a pink elephant, right? It's just that's sitting there right now. But it's sitting there. I can't tell you to remove it, right? But it's sitting there until something else is introduced to replace it, right? So you can't subtract, but you can add. The simulation of the patterns of music that I use, they are introducing moment to moment something for the brain to pay attention to, which means if it's paying attention to the music, then it is not generating this incessant stream of random thoughts that is the soundtrack of most people's heads. And so you're staying in it. And again, all you got to do is listen. There's no technique. There's no mantra. There's no special breathing you have to do. You just have to sit and listen. Or lie down even and listen. It doesn't get easier. And just go on the ride. And what I've found and what I've heard from so many thousands and thousands of people is that they're able to stay in it and go somewhere very profound, very deep, because they're able to get past the noise in their head. They're able to get past the anxiety, which is this incessant thought and stress and all of that, the worrying, and just get to a place of presence. Very powerful, very healing, right? And very creative. From there, all kinds of possibilities arise. So that's what we're getting at with this. And it's very accessible, very accessible.
No, I love that, Murray. And I think what you're describing is kind of getting out of your own way, right? Leaving yourself open.
Sean, I say that all the time. I say that all the time. That's exactly what I say.
I think I may have read that.
It's so easy to point the finger. Yeah. It's easy to point the finger at other situations, circumstances, people that are quote unquote causing us, our obstacles in life. And no, the answer is we're always in our own way. Whether it's the beliefs we have, the thoughts we have, right? We're just getting in our own way. So we use music, we use these experiences to reflect, to lead an examined life, right? Like Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living, right? And so by leading an examined life, by reflecting, we can open up new possibilities. And now we lead a deliberate life, a life that we love and that we actually are thriving in. That's what this is all about.
Yep. I love it. And I can totally see where music can be the first thing to replace the negativity or whatever the unwanted thoughts are, so that you then can uncover and discover the goodness that you want in your travel and in your journey. And as Marco said, I think it's time to wrap here and enjoy some music. I'm tempted to ask you to play, but I think we'll just let folks. We'll include links to the show notes. And
if you want, I can provide I'll provide a recording I send you, and you can even put a minute or two here at the end if you like.
And of course, I let me know when you're going to play next time on the beach here in LA, and be sure to show up and participate somehow. But again,
and in Central Park here in New York.
Yes,
so you have two new fans here.
That's right.
Wonderful. I look forward to meeting you. Yeah.
Well, we thank you so much.
Yeah,
this was a very inspiring conversation. And Sean, as usual, I mean, this time actually not usual. We will stay tuned because we will play something from Murray here, and for everything else, links to YouTube, to all your channel, the foundation, and everything. There are notes in the podcast notes here on Audio Signals, and we hope you enjoy this conversation and enjoy the music. And stay tuned for the
Have a
next
great journey, everyone.
adventure.
Exactly. Thank you, Murray.
Thank you both.
Blue Lava is the first business platform for CISOs to manage their security program. Blue Lava guides security leaders to effectively measure, optimize, and communicate their security program with confidence and ease in one platform. Learn more at bluelava.net.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Audio Signals. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society, and some even beyond that.